Okay. Hey everyone, so welcome back to Noni Plus. My name is Stanley Kimefuna and I'll be your C# instructor for today's class. So today we'll be learning the different types of constructor. In our last class, we learned that the constructor helps us to give values to an object when it is being created. So today we're going to learn the three most common types of constructor. But first of all, let me give you an example using a school management system, because I like to give an example when I'm teaching, so that you can understand different types of constructors and how to use them. Let's imagine that you are building a school system, and we want to create a student, and you need to create a student. Just imagine that you are building a school system and you want to create a student class. Okay, so first of all, let's create a student class. Let's see how to create a student class. So come here and say class student. We have public, int age, we have public, string, name. So these are the student class and these are the properties of this class. We have the age and the name. So now here is the question: can there be different ways to create a student from this class? Yes, there are different ways to create a student from this class. So that's the reason we have different types of constructor. So the first type of constructor we're going to look at is, let me write it here. This is one default constructor. So let's go how default constructor works. So let's start. This is the student class, age and name. So let's imagine you have a school system, and maybe you are the secretary to that particular school, and a student works, or they ask you to create a student. They ask you to do an Excel sheet, put a student's name, student age, student department, but don't create any students yet. So what they're asking you now to do now, just do an Excel sheet for where students are going to enter their name, their age, their department, their course, and maybe next week you can come back and start imputing the names of those students. Meanwhile, you have given those students admission, but you have not imputed their name. Maybe a student walk into your office and say, I'm a new student, please register me. So you just say, hold on, come back, I've already created a student for you, but I've not gotten your details yet. Or come back tomorrow or come back next week. I'm going to get all your details. You tell me your name, you tell me your department, you tell me your age. But meanwhile, you have already created a column for that particular student, age, name. So let's go. Let's say we have a class student, public, int, age, public, string, name. Then let's create a constructor, a default constructor. We have CTOR. So this is default constructor. We have, like I said in my previous video, a constructor must have the same name with the class. That's why we have students here and we have students here. So you can see in our constructor, we are not passing any parameters inside this bracket. It's empty. We're not passing any parameters inside this class. So let's now create this student. So what are we going to do when creating this student? So let's go. So you can say, come here and say, create a student. Remember, if you want to create an object from a class, you have the object name, student, the class name, which is the new student 1, is equals to what? New keyword. We have new, then the student class. This is the first and the best way to create is objects from a class. So now we have created a student object from this particular class with the help of this constructor. So you can see First of all, what we did here now, we have created an empty student list. Nothing has been assigned. We have not gotten the parameters of those students. We have not gotten details of those students. We just know that this student one, the first student that came into this school, we have not gotten his details. And we are not doing that immediately. We are just trying to create an empty student first, initially. Then you can come back next week and come here and start assigning those parameters to those students. So you can say here, new students 1, the new student 1 dot what, age is equals to 2. Okay, so let's say 12. Come here and say new student dot what, new student 1, sorry, dot name is equals to what, Stanley. Okay, make for now. So you can come here and print the console CW. We have new students 1 dot name, create another one, new student dot what, age. So now what we have done here is, this is a default constructor, because if you check this constructor, there is no parameters inside the student. We didn't assign the parameters immediately, or we didn't get the student details immediately. We just created a column for the students, the name, the departments, the age, the course, but we have not collected the student detail. That's what we did here in, can see in line 31. This is a constructor. A default constructor does not have a parameter inside. Then when you go to line 22, we created an empty student. That is, we created an object from this class without the parameters. Then we come to the next line 23. We started assigning those parameters to those students. And so we have new students 1.age equals to 12, new student 1.name equals to Stanley Kimefuna. Then we now printed the console.writeLine name and age. So if I run this application, you see that I'll get my name, which is Stanley Kimefuna, and I'll get my age, which is 12 years old. So you can see we have Stanley Kimefuna and 12 years old. So this is a default constructor. A default constructor does not receive any information when creating that constructor, does not have any parameters when creating that constructor. I don't know if you understand. So student record is simply created. That's exactly what a constructor does without a parameters. A blank student record is created. Easy way to remember for a default constructor, you create now and add the details later. You create a blank student record now and add details later. That's what we did here. Created the students in line 22 and come back, we started assigning those details later. We did not do it immediately. So now let's go to the second type of constructor, which is what? The parameterized constructor. So these are another special types of constructor, parameterized constructor. Okay, so now let's do, what if we already know the student information? Instead of creating an empty student, let's provide the details immediately. So what this does now, when a student enters your school, first of all, what you're going to do is collect the details of the student immediately. You ask him of his name, you ask him of his age. So after creating that record, you ask him of his name immediately and his age immediately. Don't wait or come back tomorrow or come back next week to start calling back the student and asking for his name. No, for a parameterized constructor, you collect details immediately after creating the student information. So let's go. So can I still use this example? Yes. Let me comment on this one. So now this is let's create a parameterized constructor. So we have a student class, int age public string name, then a constructor, public students. Then for a parameterized constructor, you have to assign the parameters immediately. And what are the parameters? We have string, string name, we have int age. So you can see we are passing a parameter instantly. We are not creating an empty constructor. This is not an empty constructor because it has a parameter. So this is a parameterized constructor. That's where the name comes from. We are creating that parameters immediately. So you can now come here inside this constructor and say name. Where is this name coming from? It's coming from this string, line 31. That is the properties of this class is equals to whatever we are assigning to these parameters to be here. So this name is just like a container. This one is the properties of this student. So whatever we assign to this name, whatever we assign to this name parameters in this student constructor, which will be equals to this name, these properties of this name of this student. So we have name equals to name, and we have what? Age is equals to age. So the same way, whatever we assign here to be assigned to this age properties. So we have age here. So now this is a parameterized constructor because now in the constructor we are assigning the parameters immediately. So now let's create a student the same way we created a student, an object from this class. It says student new student, let's say new student 2 is equals to new keyword. Please don't forget this new keyword. Then we have the student class, then in brackets so you can see this line 29 is complaining because I need some parameters inside this my open bracket because you are the one that assigned these parameters inside this constructor. So why are you not giving me these parameters here? Please, I need those parameters. Please tell me I need those parameters. That is why this thing is screaming. Please, 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 I need these parameters inside. So that's why there is an error here. Because if you go over to the error, you see that it's looking for a string name and int age. So you can come here and pass in a string name that says Stanley Ikemefuna. So it will still complain because it still need an age. So you can come here and say 12. If you click on 12, you can see it will no longer be complaining. Now we have created a student object, new student 2, and we have assigned the values, the parameters inside, all because of this constructor that has this parameter inside. That's why we have to assign the parameter instantly that we are creating the object. So you can see in line 29, an object is created and we assign the parameters instantly. So now let's now print. Okay, now so let's now print the console. We have CW, we have new students 2 dot age, and we have CW new student dot what name. So now let's run this application. I'm going to get age 12 and the name is Stanley Ikemefuna. As you can see, this is very simple. This is the best way to do a parameterized constructor. So you can see 29, you created the student class, you created the student object and we assign the parameters immediately. Then we now print out the console to show our age and to show our name. Hope you guys understand this parameterized constructor. It's very, very easy. So you create a student and you get the details of those students immediately. When a student walks into your school, you ask for the student name, student age, student department immediately. Don't go and tell the student, go and come back tomorrow and come and take your record. No, do that immediately. If you are telling the student to go and come back tomorrow, that means you are doing a default constructor. Easy way to remember for parameterized constructor: create now and provide information immediately. So the last one, this is not a constructor, but we also refer to as a constructor, which is constructor overloading. So this is very simple to understand. Just like you are doing the two types of constructor in a class, you are having like two constructor in a class. That is constructor overloading. So now what we want to both, if we want to have both options, we want to have both default constructor and the parameterized constructor. Yes, you can do that. You can create an empty student, and also you can create the student with details later. So that's what we refer to as what a constructor overloading. So I can quickly show you what a constructor overloading is. Can I use this one? Yes, so I can just quickly come here and say constructor. So this is another constructor. So it's a default constructor here from 42 to 45, and here we have a parameterized constructor from 37 to 39. So now you can come here and say name is equals to unknown, because we have not collected the details. If you want to come here and say age is equals to is equals to 0. Yes, so you can come here and also create students, new students, let's say 3 is equals to new students. So you learn 33 now is a empty student because of what? Of this default constructor. Let me move this one so it doesn't confuse you. Because of this default constructor, we have this one here on line 33. So this is a third student, created an empty student on line 33. So you can come here and say new student 3.name is equals to John. No, John or Carrefour. Can come here and say new student 3 dot age is equals to 12. You can come here and print out the console. CW new student 3 dot what name. And come here and duplicate it and say new students dot age. So now we have a default constructor, and also we have a parameterized constructor in this class student. So you can say the second student is with a parameter, while the third student is without a parameter, is an empty student. If I run this application, let me see my result. You can say 12 Stanley came in now, John or Carrefour, can say 12 years old. So you see the same thing. So we are using a constructor overloading, having the two constructor in a class. So this is very easy to understand. I don't need to go deep in this. So now you understand what the default constructor is. Create a student without no information. For parameterized constructor, create a student in the information collected immediately. Then for constructor overloading, multiple constructor in the same class. So before we end this video, tell me in the comments, if you are building a student class, what other information will you store besides name and age? So you can add it to your code. What other properties will you collect from a student after collecting the name and age? So you can write it without, is it course, is it department, is it mail? Let me know in my comment section below. So congratulations guys, now you understand the 3 most common types of constructor, and trust me, this is used everywhere in real world application. So in my next lesson, we're going to learn something more powerful, which is the properties, the get and the set. Don't forget to subscribe, like this video, and share it to someone learning C# for beginners only. I will see you in the next one. Take care.